Hi, I'm Werner. This is the universe. Unfortunately, it's in French. Tina, can you read this?
I can translate that for you, yes. It says, the projection stereographic of 8 cells in a polytype 4-dimension. The height and the stops are shown. The faces you don't see.
Well, I didn't want you to read it in English. I wanted you to read it in French.
Okay, sorry. I thought you wanted me to translate it.
No.
Projection stéréotypique dans 8 cellules, un polytope 4-dimensionnel. Les sommets et les arrêts sont montrés. Les faces ne sont pas.
All right, thank you, Tina. That's what
You're
I
welcome.
wanted to get across to the people.
Thank you.
Okay? This is the universe. Or this very well may be the universe, and this is what it looks like. Okay?
Okay.
There's been some experiments done over the years that have been forgotten about. One of them was the Tamarack Mines experiment, where they hung plumb bobs down a mine shaft and measured between the top and bottom. And when they did all the math, they found that these bobs hung farther apart at the bottom than at the top. Okay, and they discovered that the center of gravity was 4,000 miles straight up. Okay, as opposed to straight down. Now that makes absolutely no sense if you think of the Earth as a ball in space. And of course we see a ball in space, but we don't see the whole picture. This may be the whole picture, depending on where you are inside this hypercube or sphere or both. Depending on where you are, will determine on what you see, what you measure, how far something is away, how close something is, will depend upon where you are within this 4D matrix. Okay, there's another experiment that was done that was forgotten about, and same kind of an experiment to determine which way the Earth curved. There was a man named Cyrus Teed who in the 19th century, early 19th century, measured the curve of the Earth. He claimed we were already living on the inside of it. And he went to Naples, Florida with his followers, and they developed a straight line along the Florida coastline that they took for miles, okay, using an instrument called the rectilinear, which was basically 12-foot long T-squares laid end to end. Very carefully. Newspapers of the time covered these experiments. I have some of them here. I'm not going to dig them out right now, but they're documented. They're well documented. And he determined that we lived on the inside as a result of these experiments. The line eventually intersected the Earth. Now, most of these have been forgotten about, these experiments. Most of them have never been tried again due to the fact that, well, if you already know we're a planet, and that's all we are, a ball in space spinning and rotating around the sun, there's no need for you to try to check that out, because you already know. You don't do experiments on things you already know. Geostationary satellites, GPS satellites whizzing around the Earth all have correction factors built into them to determine where you are right now and here. I can take my phone and it will tell me where I am, probably to within a couple feet, and tell me where I want to go. That has no bearing on whether we're on the inside or outside. Now, making no sense of this, that the heavens and all their hosts could be contained inside of a three-dimensional sphere, is impossible, and so that's why we have this. The Earth is in a matrix of 4 dimensions, and those 4 dimensions, depending on where we are, will determine how we see it. When we go out into space and look back and see a ball hanging in space, we're still within this part of the matrix of where that is all we're allowed to see. Now, let's say that these these boundaries, let's say that they're invisible. Okay, let's say that they don't have any corners or sides that you can see. So let's take that dimensionality and project it out into space. Okay, you don't know where the corners are because the skies are as a molten looking glass. Okay, and as light, when it travels through a glass, bends depending on where you're looking at it from, and the curvature of the glass and the refraction of the light through it. Everything that you measure through that glass will determine what you consider reality to be. It could be that when you're traveling through this glass, you're entering that four-dimensional matrix. You don't know you are, and maybe the only indication that you are is that you feel gravity pulling you back towards the surface. So once you go up to like where a satellite might be, or where the space shuttle is now, about 300 miles straight up, you encounter gravity and you have to use great force to get up to that 300 miles. But once you're there, you're just hanging in space. You're hanging in space, and you're maybe traveling at a linear velocity relative to the surface, so it appears that you're going around, okay? But you're hanging there. You're hanging there in space. And now, because there is no gravity apparent at that point, you've reached the limit of that dimension, okay? So when you look back at the Earth, you see a ball hanging in space, but don't forget you're looking at that ball from inside the glass. Okay? Those rays are refracted, those measurements are perceived as being what you see. Okay? So that may not be the entire reality.